It's 3 a.m. on August 8, 1963. 58-year-old Jack Mills is pushing a massive locomotive through the pitch-black British countryside. Behind him is a string of ordinary-looking carriages belonging to the Royal Mail, but tucked inside one of these dark cars are sacks stuffed with cash, an amount equivalent to £67 million today. Suddenly, approaching Sears Crossing, an anomaly appears in the dark. A glowing red railway signal. In this desolate stretch of track, a stop here makes zero sense. But protocol is protocol, and Mills slams on the brakes. Waiting in the brush is a crew led by Bruce Reynolds and a notorious London gang called the South Coast Raiders. They are career criminals, but they have absolutely zero experience hijacking trains. The locomotive comes to a halt, sitting in absolute silence. This is the start of a massive, coordinated hijack, one that will rely on logistics and silence rather than a shootout. Since the crew knew nothing about railways, they had to rig the odds before ever stepping foot near the tracks. They found their edge through a senior, unidentified insider at the Royal Mail who handed them two crucial pieces of intelligence. This diagram shows the 12-car train. The scheduled high-value carriage had a broken alarm. It was swapped for reserve coach M3024M, which had zero security. Furthermore, a bank holiday backlog meant this unprotected carriage hauled £3 million instead of the usual $300,000. To actually force the train to stop, they avoided barricading the tracks entirely. They simply stuffed a glove over the green signal light and wired a portable battery to illuminate the red bulb. By exploiting the strict rules of the railway, they forced the Royal Mail to voluntarily deliver the payload right to their feet. As soon as the wheels stop moving, the crew severs the line-side telephone wires. They swarm the engine room, violently subduing Jack Mills with an iron rod. With the driver incapacitated, the thieves execute the isolation phase. They jump between the cars and disconnect the couplings, cleanly severing the engine and the first two carriages from the remaining 10 cars, leaving dozens of postal workers sitting in the dark, completely unaware. But here, their precise timeline hits a massive wall. The gang brought along a retired railway driver to move the stolen section forward. He climbs aboard, looks at the controls of this newer diesel locomotive, and completely freezes. He has no idea how to drive it. Desperate, they pull a bleeding Jack Mills off the floor. Under threat of further violence, they force him back into the driver's seat and order him to move the train exactly 1 kilometer. Mills complies, bringing the engine to a halt precisely on top of Brightigo Bridge. To avoid detection from signalmen or other trains scheduled on the line, the robbers set a strict 15-minute timer to complete the transfer and vanish. The physical labor alone is staggering. The crew forms a human chain down the steep embankment, passing 120 heavy mailbags weighing a combined 2.5 tons, and loaded them straight into their waiting Austin Lodestar truck. Even with the near disaster of the failing driver, they load the cash, abandon the train, and completely vanish into the night. Following a 45-minute drive, the crew arrives at Leatherslade Farm, an isolated hideout they had rented months in advance. They are now sitting on £2.5 million. The adrenaline is flowing. They divide the haul and spend the weekend celebrating, even playing a game of Monopoly using the real stolen £5 and £10 notes. Then the radio crackles. Tuning into police VHF frequencies, the gang discovers the authorities are already sweeping a 30-mile radius right around them. One of the robbers had carelessly told the train staff not to move for 30 minutes, a detail that gave police the exact math they needed to pinpoint their maximum escape distance. Panic sets in. The gang shifts their departure from Sunday to Friday. They wipe down their prints, pay a hired associate a chunk of cash to burn the farmhouse to the ground, and scatter. Rigging the signals and subduing the train required extreme discipline, but the intense psychological weight of the aftermath caused their meticulous planning to unravel. The hired associate takes the payoff money and simply walks away. He never starts to fire. Days later, a suspicious neighbor tips off the police, who swarm the property and find the hideout completely intact. The gang had painstakingly scrubbed their tools, the vehicles, and the countertops, but in their panicked rush to flee, they forgot to wipe down the Monopoly board. Because these were known criminals, Scotland Yard quickly matched the fingerprints left on the board's pieces to their internal records. Within days, the authorities track down and arrest 14 of the 16 gang members. The physical toll lingered long after the arrests. Driver Jack Mills never fully recovered from his head injury and passed away 7 years later. Bridego Bridge itself was permanently rebranded in the public consciousness, known informally to this day as Robbers Bridge. The most famous hijack in British history outmaneuvered the Royal Mail's logistics and vanished with a fortune. Yet it was defeated not by high-tech detective work, but by a carelessly abandoned